Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reading some sonnets by an Italian poet named Petrarch. I have Petrarch's Wikipedia page open here, and I'll tell you a little bit about him before I get into his work. Francesco Petrarca, born July 20th, 1304, and died July 18th or 19th, 1374, was an Italian scholar and poet during the early Italian Renaissance, who was one of the earliest humanists. Petrarch's rediscovery of Cicero's letters is often credited with initiating the 14th century Italian Renaissance and the founding of Renaissance humanism. In the 16th century, Pietro Bembo created the model for the modern Italian language based on Petrarch's works, as well as those of Giovanni Boccaccio and, to a lesser extent, Dante Alighieri. Petrarch would be later endorsed as a model for Italian style by the Accademia della Crusca. Petrarch's sonnets were admired and imitated throughout Europe during the Renaissance and became a model for lyrical poetry. He is also known for being the first to develop the concept of the Dark Ages. On April 6th, 1327, after Petrarch gave up his vocation as a priest, the sight of a woman called Laura in the church of St. Clare d'Avignon awoke in him a lasting passion, celebrated in the fragments of vernacular matters. Laura may have been Laura de Noves, the wife of Count Hughes de Sade, an ancestor of the Marquis de Sade. There is little definite information in Petrarch's work concerning Laura, except that she is lovely to look at, fair-haired, with a modest, dignified bearing. Laura and Petrarch had little or no personal contact. According to his Secretum, she refused him because he was already married. Or rather, she was already married. Petrarch never married. In fact, he considered Laura to be his only love. He channeled his feelings into love poems that were exclamatory rather than persuasive, and wrote prose that showed his contempt for men who pursue women. Upon her death in 1348, the poet found that his grief was as difficult to live with as was his former despair. Later in his letter to posterity, Petrarch wrote, "In my younger days, I struggled constantly with an overwhelming but pure love affair, my only one, and I would have struggled with it longer had not premature death, bitter but salutary for me, extinguished the cooling flames. I certainly wish I could say that I have always been entirely free from desires of the flesh, but I would be lying if I did." I have a big book of sonnets by Petrarch. It's very old and musty. My favorite kind of book. It comes in a nice sliding case. And it was translated by Thomas G. Bergen, with drawings by Aldo Salvador. So, I'm going to choose one at random and read a few. What's interesting is they are presented both in English and in the original Italian. Another interesting thing is that Petrarch wrote most of his work in Latin. This is called To a Friend Returning to the Right Path. Love wept, and to like weeping prompted me, for 'twixt us there was never left a space, learning that, in your strange and uncouth case, your soul from his close fastenings had got free. But now the right path God has made you see, wherefore I lift my hands toward his high place, and thank him from my heart that of his grace he heareth righteous prayers benignantly, and if on lover's life, when newly intent, you've come upon a steep or moat, which hath from the fair quest made you turn back well nigh, this was to show how full of thorns the path, how difficult and alpine is the ascent, which man's true nobleness is mastered by. I was incorrect about who translated these. These were all translated by different people. This one is entitled, again, on the same subject. Then me, more joyful never reached the shore, a vessel, by the winds long tossed and tried, whose crew, late hopeless on the waters wide, to a good God their thanks now prostrate pour, nor captive from his dungeon ever tore, around whose neck the noose of death was tied, more glad than me that weapon laid aside, which to my Lord hostility long bore. All ye who honor love in poet's strain, to the good minstrel of the amorous lay, return due praise, though once he went astray, for greater glory is in heaven's blessed reign, over one sinner saved, and higher praise than e'en for 99 perfect ways. So there are a lot of poems about religion. He was a religious man, which is not surprising. Here is a poem that is entitled, whether by Petrarch or by the translator whose name is given as Garnet, Could all the world but know of her virtues. Fair spirit, with all virtue fired and crowned, for whom my pen so long inscribes my lays, dwelling of fair report from girlish days, tower based on worth transcendent and profound. O flame, O rose in teeming leaves unbound of living snow, sole pattern of my gaze, rapture, whence urged my soaring wing I raise to fairer light than else 'neath heaven is found. From Thule to Calpe, hymned should be thy name, in Bactrian, Indian, Scythian ear resounded, rang so far this lyre of mine. But this forbidden, this fair land shall here be girt by wall of Alp and azure sea, the cloven by the ridges Apennine. This is entitled, Laura Reproves Presumption, but Pities Suffering. I apologize if I stumble on any of these. I haven't read them beforehand. When, with two ardent spurs and a hard rein, passion, my daily life, who rules and leads, from time to time the usual law exceeds that calm, at least in part, my spirits may gain. It findeth her, who on my forehead plain the dread and daring of my deep heart reads, and seeth love, to punish its misdeeds, lighten her piercing eyes with worse disdain. Wherefore, as one who fears the impending blow of angry Jove, it back in haste retires, for great fears ever master great desires. But the cold fire and shrinking hopes which so lodge in my heart, transparent as a glass, o'er her sweet face at times make gleams of grace to pass. In this poem, he mentions Jove, and in the original Italian, this is rendered Giove. Jove is another word for the god Jupiter. In fact, things relating to the planet Jupiter, such as its moons or its orbit, are described by astronomers as Jovian. When people say, by Jove, they're talking about Jupiter. Okay. This is Dialogue of the Poet and His Soul. What are you thinking, soul? And shall we see this war forever? Shall no truce occur? Why, who can tell our fate? But I'll aver she likes not our disease, fidelity. And what if that, if but by glancing she may make us fire, or than ice, icier? That is the work of love, no blame to her. Why speaks she then no word to set us free? Sometimes the tongue is silent, and the heart laments in misery. The tearless eyes laugh, hiding floods of anguish past belief. Little, indeed, such comfort satisfies the mind where stagnant sorrows lurk and smart. Hope is incredible to the slave of grief. He was a very passionate individual. This is called On Laura's Perfection. The stars, the elements, and heaven have made, with blended powers a work beyond compare. All their consenting influence, all their care, to frame one perfect creature lent their aid. Whence nature views her loveliness displayed, with sun-like radiance sublimely fair. No mortal eye can the pure splendor bear. Love, sweetness, in unmeasured grace arrayed, the very air illumed by her sweet beams, breathes purest excellence, and such delight that all expression far beneath it gleams. No base desire lives in that heavenly light, honor alone, and virtue. Fancies, dreams, never saw passion refined by rays so bright. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. I think that's what you're supposed to say. I'm still learning. Thank you for being patient with me. Until next time.